On the line with us is Elie Mystal, the justice correspondent for The Nation, the author of a forthcoming book, Allow Me to Retort, a black guy's guide to the Constitution. TheNation.com is where you can find his writings. Elie NYC is his Twitter handle, ELIE NYC, or, of course, at The Nation. Elie, welcome to the program. You have been speaking out. I catch you all the time on MSNBC and other media, talking about ways that Democrats can respond to this new Handmaid's Tale reality in Texas. What are your thoughts? What are your most recent thoughts on both a political response and a legal response?
First of all, thank you so much for having me, Tom. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Pleasure and an honor.
Second of all, my thoughts is that so far, the DOJ's response has been entirely ineffective. Merrick Garland came out over the long weekend announcing that the Department of Justice was going to aggressively enforce face protection laws. Now, the face law is a very old statute that we have that prohibits people from obstructing access to abortion clinics, abortion providers, other family planning services. That law has been on the books for, I want to say, 10, 15 years, maybe even longer. First of all, it should already be being enforced, right? Right. The fact that Garland has to say, we're going to enforce it now kind of, suggests that this law has not been aggressively enforced before, and literally any person, and I know some of them, any person who has done the work of being an abortion escort, where you literally need to escort people seeking family planning services into clinics, every person who's done that knows that these face laws have already been under-enforced by the federal government. Right. Because they are the reason why these women need escorts is because people are accosting them, screaming at them, and blocking their path. All right? So, yeah, face laws should definitely be enforced. Won't do a single thing to stop the Texas law. The Texas law is not about obstructing abortion clinics or bombing abortion clinics or doing violence to abortion clinics. The Texas law is about suing abortion clinics, abortion providers, drivers, Uber drivers, receptionists. It's about suing people who provide constitutionally protected services to pregnant people after 6 weeks of pregnancy. And there's no face law that violates, right?
Yeah, I read his statement in the Washington Post over the weekend, and I'm like, what does this have to do with this whole, Texas vigilante thing? It was a complete non sequitur.
And one of the things that I find frustrating about it, on top of many things, is that why does he even make that statement? Right? It's designed to calm people down. Right. It's designed to give the appearance of action without actually taking action. And this, I have to say, is part and parcel of the general Democratic response, the general white male Democratic response to the attacks on women's rights to choose over the last 30 or 40 years. Yeah. It's not to aggressively fight for the right to family planning and fight for the right for abortions. It is to appear to be protecting the principle without actually putting skin in the game, butts on the line to fight and protect women. This is what Democrats do more often than not on this issue. They try to say the nice thing, they try to calm passions, they try to skirt the issue instead of aggressively going out and fighting, and that's why we're here. Because the Republicans, as we've seen in Texas, as we see in Mississippi, as we're about to see in Florida and South Dakota and Missouri and Arkansas, Republicans are out here like they're on crusade, all right? They act like they have the moral high ground. They act like forcing a woman to bring a pregnancy to term against her will is something that is not barbaric, right, which is beyond me. But they act like they are on some kind of holy crusade, and Democrats act ashamed that they have to protect women's rights.
And this goes way back, Elie. I mean, back in the early 90s, Bill Clinton was talking about how we want to make abortion safe, legal, and rare, and which is, again, buying into the frame that there's something wrong with abortion. Obviously, we're talking about pre-viability. and in most cases substantially pre-viability. But this overwhelmingly emotional argument, combined with the fact that you've got the Catholic Church, which has a seat in the United Nations and has no female citizens, but is on the Family Planning Commission at the UN, or at least used to be. I think that you've got a lot of Democratic politicians who are afraid to offend Catholic voters. They don't want to lose them, and so they've always tried to have it both ways. Oh, we're trying to keep abortion safe and legal, but we kind of agree with you that it's morally something that's a little creepy and we shouldn't have. Instead of saying right up front, unwanted pregnancies can be a terrible problem. They can be a life-destroying problem for some people. They can certainly be a life-altering problem for most people. Who are in a position where they can't care with this child. And as a society, one of the things that we know, and we know it very well, I mean, the research on this has been done, and it's pretty impeccable, is that when you have large numbers of unwanted children, you end up with two crises. You end up with unwanted children who are raised knowing they're unwanted, and they end up badly damaged and in need of services the rest of their lives, whether it's psychological service or prison. And you end up with foundling homes, essentially. I mean, we're seeing these from 100 years ago, 50 years ago, these homes where children were taken, unwanted children in Ireland and Canada, sometimes for native children. And we're finding all these bodies buried on the grounds, because they basically were unwanted, they were abused, they were mistreated. This is a crime, against humanity, essentially.
And you have the problem of women who want abortions getting them in unsafe ways, right? Because that's
right, which is a whole third thing.
That's the dark side of these restrictions. It doesn't stop abortions. It forces women onto the black market where their health cannot be protected.
Correct.
Look, from the perspective of people who claim, and I believe it is just a claim, I do not believe that this should be given the imprimatur of a real belief because you just got to think it through. But the people who claim that they care about the life of the unborn, well, here's an idea. Give $10,000 and free health care to women who want to carry their pregnancy to term. Like, you could do that. If you were so concerned about the care and well-being of unborn people, what you would do was to make sure that the mother was as protected, as healthy, as rested as possible in this society, right? You wouldn't be fighting against, a 6-week federal family leave policy. You would be demanding 1 year paid federal family leave for any woman who wants to bring a pregnancy to term. That's what you do if you care about life. And if you don't care about life, if you only care about controlling women's bodies, that's how you get into $10,000 bounty system for ratting out your neighbor trying to go to the doctor.
Amen. We're talking with Elie Mystal, the justice correspondent for The Nation and author of the forthcoming book, Allow Me to Retort, A Black Guy's Guide to the Constitution. And let's start using proper language, by the way. Number one, let's stop using the word unborn unless we're talking about viable, post-24-week pregnancies. And let's stop referring to a pregnancy at 6 weeks or 8 weeks or 10 weeks as a fetus when in fact it's a zygote. Let's stop referring to heartbeats at 6 weeks because there is no heart. There are cells in there that are pulsing with an electrical current because someday they will develop into a heart. I mean, the forced birth faction essentially has hijacked language, Elie.
Yeah, and look, most people in this country they think of themselves as somewhere in the middle, right? They want abortions to be legal in some cases and to be illegal in other cases. And what those people, for the most part, don't understand is that I have just described the law as it is right now.
Right.
All Roe v. Wade stands for, all it stands for, is the concept that the state cannot force a woman to bring a pregnancy to term if she decides to terminate that pregnancy before fetal viability, which scientifically happens around 24 weeks. Fetal viability is the standard. Why? Because fetal viability, excuse me, because fetal viability is the point where scientifically the fetus can exist outside the womb, right? This makes sense. At the point where the thing needs the woman to survive, then clearly it is still part of the woman's, at the point where you can take it out and it can live on its own in some, with medical help, well, then we're in a different situation.
Right, and that's where it goes from being a fetus to an unborn child.
Right, and that's why the courts have put the demarcation line at fetal viability. After fetal viability, we agree that there is some state interest in blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Before fetal viability, we agree that women are people too.
Right.
It's as simple as that. So the law as it is right now already accounts for this push-pull in American politics with people who want abortions sometimes but don't want abortions other times. That's where we are already.
So, Elie,
conservatives are trying. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we're going to hit a hard break here in about a minute, I think, that I can't control. What legally how do you think this thing is going to play out in Texas legally? I believe you're a graduate of the Harvard Law School, if I'm recalling correctly.
Indeed, although that's not as sterling a credential as it used to be. What Biden needs to do is, via executive order, establish federal abortion providers, federal doctors who are, through qualified immunity, cannot be sued by these private citizens trying to carry on their bounty hunt. That's the quickest way around the Texas law, but none of this stops until Democrats take back the Supreme Court. Because if it wasn't this Texas law, the Supreme Court was already poised to overturn Roe v. Wade this June in a case called Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health, which involves a Mississippi law that bans abortion after 15 weeks with no exception for rape or incest.
Right.
Like, the court was already going to do this, and as long as the Democrats allow Republicans to control the Supreme Court, they will do this.
Yeah, which is a big, so we've got issues wrapped within issues. Elie Mystal, great talking with you. Thank you so much for dropping by, and good luck with your new book, Allow Me to Retort, A Black Guy's Guide to the Constitution. I'm looking forward to it, and thanks for writing for The Nation all the time. It's a great publication, thenation.com.